Hit record here. Fantastic. So hello, I'm part of the team at the Outdoor Learning Store. We're a North American-wide charitable social enterprise that offers outdoor learning equipment and resources for educators and learners while supporting outdoor learning nonprofit organisations. I also work closely with Take Me Outside, who are our partner in delivering this workshop. My name is Jade, and I'm joining you today from the interior of British Columbia, what we now call Revelstoke, but which has been known as Skihiken by the Snikes people who've lived here for millennia. That's the place where the ridgelines meet the water, and I have the Selkirk Mountains to my east and the Monashees to the west, and we sit in that valley basin, so it's a very fitting name. This place has also been known and stewarded and fished and hunted and travelled through and cared for by the Secwepemc, the Tsimshian and the Okanagan Silts people, and I express my gratitude to live, work and play uninvited on this land. So we are here as a part of a pretty special week in Canada, at least. So in the context of outdoor learning in North America, it is fundamental to develop our understanding of local traditional ecological knowledge and perspectives. We need to take the time to nurture relationships with the Indigenous people who've called this place home for millennia. And it's especially poignant as we approach the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in Canada, which is this Friday, September 30th, and also Indigenous Peoples Day, which is October 11th in the US. This work should never be confined to just one day, but it's part of a continued effort to deepen our understanding. So if it's relevant to you and you know it, please, we invite you to share in the chat which Indigenous territory you're joining us from today. If you're living on traditional and unceded territory and you don't know whose land it is, you can visit native-land.ca, but this map covers the entire globe as a resource to help you learn more. Starting here is a place to open opportunities to build relationships with your local Indigenous, First Nations or Native groups. Over to you, Steph.
Thanks, Jade. Hello, everybody. My name's Steph. I work for Take Me Outside. I'm the program coordinator there. It's lovely to be here and see all of these, some familiar faces, some new faces. And on behalf of our organization and 50 plus outdoor learning partners, we're really excited to be here this evening or afternoon, wherever you are joining in from. I'm joining in from Vancouver Island in British Columbia, which is Coast Salish territory. Where I'm at specifically is where people of the Gitlan Tribes and Hulkaminam speaking people have stewarded this land since time immemorial. I'm very grateful to be here back where I grew up, and after some time away, back home for me too.
Thanks, Steph. So while the last few years have been undoubtedly challenging, a silver lining has been the broader understanding of the importance of outdoor learning for physical, mental, social health, as well as for the deeper real world learning opportunities that it offers. So being able to offer our workshops online has enabled people from across Turtle Island or North America to join us and beyond, especially those who are living in more remote or underrepresented areas who might not make an in-person workshop. When I look at the 256 people who are joining us today after a busy day at work or a busy day at school or a busy day in your lives, you can see the passion in this field, and I feel deeply connected and grateful for every one of you for your commitment to this. And so we should all be really proud that this work is happening, and by being here you're a part of that. For those of you just joining, welcome. Bit of Zoom 101. You can type any questions you have in the chat. Steph and Duncan from the Outdoor Learning team are busy as burrowing away behind the scenes, collecting those questions, and then we will pose them to Bill later on. You can leave your video on if you like. It's nice to present to faces, but you can also have it off. Please stay muted. There is a live transcript for anyone who might have any difficulty hearing. If that is difficult for you to focus above, you can hit the 3 dots under more and you can turn that off. What will happen is I'm going to do a really quick introduction. We are going to have a very brief tobacco ceremony to honour our Indigenous guests today. And then Robert Goldsmith of Strong Nations is going to speak briefly about their organisation. And then Bill Helin is going to present. We're going to have a Q&A, and then at the end we are going to have some fantastic prizes. So please stay to the end. You can access the recording, a discount code to the store, and a certificate of attendance via a link will come into your inbox by lunchtime tomorrow. If you don't have it, please check your spam. It may have gone there. Okay, so let's kick things off with a really quick poll. I just want to let's find out, where are you joining us from? Thank you for sharing your Indigenous acknowledgements in the chat. This gives us a little idea of where people are joining us from across. So please go ahead and fill those in. Steph, can you share a little bit about the results coming in there?
I don't see any results coming in yet.
Okay, maybe we might have a Duncan to support there, or maybe not.
I think you're out of luck. I think it was pre-shared. Well, but the more important poll question is coming up next, right?
Yes, absolutely. Can you share who you are? Okay, I've got a timer. That means people are happening. Can anybody? Yes, share. I can see it. That's fantastic.
Oh,
it wouldn't be a virtual workshop if there wasn't one minute technical difficulty. Okay, I'm just going to give you another 5 seconds for people to share. There are more options if you scroll, if you're not seeing who you are. There's 3 seconds, 2, 1. I'm going to end the poll there and I'm going to share those results. So look, we have formal educators from all grades, early childhood, outdoor admin, community, parent educators, and people who aren't even actually educators, but are just passionate. Thank you so much for sharing. It just goes to show the diversity of the organizations and the groups that we're having here. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen really quickly and we can get real into the key information here. So welcome to the Outdoor Learning Full Virtual Workshop series. This is the third in the series. It's the 27th of September, and this is Animals Care for Mother Earth, an Indigenous resource for personal development. I just want to share very quickly, we now have over 50 incredible outdoor learning partners. These are our international partners. These are our North American partners. There's a link going into the chat so you can follow up with these. They have resources, they have support, they have access to funding. These people can really support you in your outdoor learning, so check them out. And here are our Canadian partners. Thank you to each and every one of them for the work and the support that you do. I just wanted to share really briefly about our organisation, the Columbia Basin Environmental Education Network. As I said, this isn't just about a day for the Orange T-shirt Day. There's a link we'll put in there for those of you who are maybe not familiar. This is the Every Child Matters campaign. We're looking to understand really the truth of what has actually happened to Indigenous people since settlers have come into this place, and to work to reconcile those atrocities that happened. And what we're doing is we have a year-long learning challenge. This is primarily for people within the Columbia Basin, but this is in conjunction with the First Nations University of Canada, with the Rocky Mountain School District 6, Reconciliation. So it's a really powerful thing that we're doing, going on a year-long journey. So we'd encourage you to try and reach out and find things that connect into you there too. But now, just before I formally introduce our main presenter, Bill, and our introductory speaker, Robert, I would just like to share my respect for our Indigenous guests in offering a very short tobacco ceremony. As a non-Indigenous person, my intention is to honour the traditions of Indigenous customs, whilst of course understanding that I'm not an Indigenous person. So these are completely different across different First Nations. But I'm going to offer this gift for our guests and their ancestors in the tradition of the Snipes, whose homeland I'm on. So I have 2 pouches of ceremonial tobacco that was grown in the traditional way where I'm located by an Indigenous person. It's wrapped in a red cloth, which is traditional for tobacco gifts in this place. And I would just like to ask if people would just take a moment to close their eyes and be still. And so I offer the ancestors this tobacco and ask that they bless this workshop and all those who attend, those presenting, and that it might help people learn more about the Indigenous people who share with us today, and that we may come into the right relationship with the people of this land. Lim limt, in Sinaic means thank you. So I will post each of these pouches to Bill and Robert, and I offer these, and please take these as a sign of our gratitude and your respect for your sharing with us today. So for our main presentation, first I have Robert Goldsmith. And so Robert Goldsmith is the Director of Publishing for Strong Nations. I am wearing a t-shirt by one of their artists. And he's going to share a little bit about who Strong Nations are. They're one of our key partners. Thanks for joining us, Robert.
Thank you for having me. So I'm just going to open up with a bit about nations. So I'm going to just welcome everybody in my traditional language, which is Hulkaminam. So Asiamnet Siaya, Antu Tolton, Robert Goldsmith. I tape Kwanzaa Ska Keep Whale. So what I'm saying is, all my respected friends, my name is Robert Goldsmith. My traditional name is Coltalton. I thank you all for gathering here today and inviting me to speak on behalf of Strong Nations. I've been with Strong Nations for a few years. It's an honor to be in the position I am now to work with Indigenous authors and illustrators such as Bill. It's very important for Strong Nations to be here because we're able to provide a voice for Indigenous authors and illustrators. We have published roughly 340 books, all have an Indigenous focus, and we have an online store as well that has over 6,000 titles. What we did is we hired a content person to make sure that all our content and books and everything we have is authentic. So we believe in representing Indigenous people properly. So we have, what's the words I'm looking for? We do have books here that are not all Indigenous authored, but they're considered almost champions of the people because Indigenous authors are still such a brand new thing. So there, a lot of people aren't writing, and you know, a lot of people can't be represented or can put their thoughts to paper. So they have somebody to help write that. So, you know, with Strong Nations being here, we believe in giving that voice to everybody with, you know, wanting to share their creation stories, their teachings, what they get from the land, where they're from, what they use there in their traditional territories. It's just about giving Indigenous people that voice to share because our culture had been taken, and you know, to be able to provide it for the next younger generations is big for us. You know, Strong Nations provides an open service of information to support and hopefully transform the lives of Indigenous peoples by providing access to and demonstrating the use of Indigenous text. Our hope is we can bring Indigenous content to the lives of all peoples in order to create pathways to support building stronger nations together. And yeah, so we just believe in being everything authentic. And Bill, being Tsimshian, he's done so much for Strong Nations, and he's been such a huge part of this company since the beginning. And you know, he's part of our family, and he's always been there to give First Nations that voice. And you know, he's a great ambassador for his people. And it's just been an honor to work with Bill, and I'm happy to just be here as part of you know, the virtual conference you're hosting. So that's about all I have to say about Strong Nations, and we just give Indigenous people the voice to you know, represent their people and where they're from.
Thank you, Robert, so much for sharing. We'll pop a link into the chat just there. Yeah, an incredible resource, voice and team with so many options for supporting educators and students that uplifts Indigenous creators, artists and authors. So thank you so much. Okay, as we move on, I would like to share briefly, and before I let him take over. But joining us today for our main presentation is Indigenous author and artist Bill Helin. Bill's going to share his new resource, Animals Care from Mother Earth. You can see it there. It's a resource bundle it's got 6 contemporary interrelated stories and supporting resources for teachers. In this bundle, there's finger puppets and stamps that were designed by Bill, along with some Indigenous plant cards. So to the proper formal introduction, Bill Helin is of Tsimshian Norwegian descent and is a member of the Tsimshian Nation. His grandfather, Henry William Helin, was chief of the Gitlan Tribe, and his grandmother, Maud Helin, was the chief of the Gitgeese Tribe. Bill spent many hours listening to his grandmother in wonder as she told him the legends of the Tsimshian people. And so I will finish sharing here. I will say thank you for that wonderful introduction, Robert, and pass it over to you, Bill.
Ndalawande. Thank you, Jade, for fine introduction, and Robert for your kind words. We have certainly got a wonderful canoe journey that we've all been on, and we've gone through some transitions since the beginning. Back in 2014, I started with Strong Nations when Terry and Ken Mack started the company and asked me to be a part of it as an illustrator. I just want to open with a traditional greeting. It's a mild prayer for my grandmother. Ndalawande walaalu nagwadam katsiam and smoygit lakaga William Adagam Goshkin the Kanani the Mikla Godagam Deutschen Snee. I reached out to connecting to my ancestors and all the ancestors of the people that are listening at this time. We all have those Indigenous roots from the beginning. And so I believe that the journeys we're on, especially through education, are so important in being open to what history and true history really reveals. So through my history and the beginning of my career as an artist, going before that, of course, my family, we began our lives up in northern BC. Tsimshian Nation and the Gitgeese Tribe are my affiliates of my Indigenous heritage. And my father was born in a place called Lac Williams, and that's just outside of Prince Rupert, where I was born. And so when we started, we were a fishing family. We weren't really well connected to our traditional culture, and we had no real historical teachings other than what my grandmother would share with me when she stayed with us or I stayed with her. So from the time that I carried on as a fisherman to 1978, when I had an accident on my commercial fishing boat, I was going through a recovery time, and I attended the Kisan Aboriginal Art School up in Hazelton, BC. It was a wonderful place that was recreated as a Indian village that was composed of all the different styles of the West Coast housing, as far as longhouses. And so I was taught by 4 different master carvers and artists and historical teachers there for 6 months, and then carried on to Prince Rupert, back to my hometown, to share my newfound creative gift, because I love my creativity, but never had any inspiration to carry it on or to pursue my Aboriginal roots and the traditions of my people. So through that accident, I believe my granny's spirit was very instrumental in steering me away from the direction I was going to go in after my fishing season that I was going to be part of before I got injured. So with that blessing in that new journey that I went on, it's certainly accommodated my creative outlets, because I just have a continual flow of creative thoughts and ideas and a desire to continually put them out on paper from my childhood. So being able to apply that into tool making and traditional Northwest Coast Native design, drum making, the drum teaching wasn't a part of that, but the drum making was there. And then I learned traditional Tsimshian designing and tool making, wood carving, and eventually after the 6 months, I learned for a couple weeks course I took with a master carver, the art of hand engraving jewelry. And that's been probably my main financial blessing as far as my career is concerned. But looking at the new journey that I started after I did a couple totem poles in Hong Kong in 2013, and received a message from Terry Mack saying that she was starting a new company and she wanted to have me, wondered if I would illustrate some children's books for her. So I figured this was a wonderful opportunity to rest after being so damaged by almost 3 months of carving with a chainsaw and carving tools in Hong Kong. And so I pursued this other journey with Terry, thinking that I was going to be illustrating maybe 2 or 3 books for her. And much to my wonderful amazement and surprise, 6 months later, I had illustrated 39 books. And that was the start of the guided reading book program that Terry and a couple other of my authors began. They had a dream project to start a teaching program based upon guided reading. And so we've now covered, after 3 different contracts with the company, Strong Nations had contracted me to do, it was over 115 books. So, and then I did 8 books that were based upon my grandparents' traditions of Alaska, Tlingit from my granny's side. And so through those books, I wrote and illustrate them based on my understandings and teachings from her heritage. And so, yeah, 120 books later, it's been a really wonderful journey with Strong Nations. And it was kind of a disappointment and sadness that when Terry and her husband retired and sold the company. But looking on to newer journeys and newer opportunities with Strong Nations, it was, again, it was great to go through another process of teaching. And when I say a process of teaching, I relate to the new book project that we took on, which, of course, if any of you haven't seen it, this is the cover of the book that we recently launched a few months ago. So Animals Care for Mother Earth, just a wonderful teaching resource. And as far as my part in this book project is, I say that it's, well, I guess I can't put a gauge on it, but it's really, at first, again, it was my excitement to be able to illustrate another storybook, but also I was requested to write 6 different stories that were to be an integral part of the whole substance of this teaching guide. And for Terry and I, Terry was just freshly getting ready to go into retirement. And myself, I was just on my first off-grid living for about 1.5 years. So by the time I took on this book project with Terry, we were both in a mindset that some of you might understand when you go through a transition of careers. You kind of go through a state of depression, and you go through all this whole redevelopment of your mindset to first to find your self-worth again, say, well, what am I going to do now that this is all done? And what can I do in my future that would emanate something that ties into the beauty of the projects that we had done previously? So Terry Mack and I, she had written over 70 books, I believe. Robert probably has the accurate number, but 70 books I illustrated that she wrote. And I always used to, when Terry used to ask me what I was thinking, what I thought about the books that she was writing with her authors, I never really paid much attention to those, to the writings. I just took my directions per page for my illustrations. So if any of you have illustrated for any book projects, you know that the people who write your material, they have a vision. They have that vision that they have written about. So that thought and idea throughout the book has a purpose. And for me, I didn't realize the importance of the guided reading process and looking at the interactive beauty of it. Because as far as I was concerned, what was being taught in the schools was pretty mediocre, and I didn't really see a lot of real progressional connectivity for children in the school systems until I came to be taught about how wonderful the guided reading process is. So Strong Nations and strongnations.com, of course, you can access all the different guided reading books that we've done. And the series of books that tie into the Indigenous teachings. I did an 8-book set for Strong Nations before Terry retired. But that whole substance of our cultures now has reached out to quite a number of other nations across Canada to have input for their own teaching books through this Indigenous program. So with that being said, looking at what the transition that Terry and I went through to get into animals care for Mother Earth, we had an idea that we wanted to do something about teaching in the classes about pollution and about children being able to interact and through our own connectivity to our Indigenous teachings. So looking at what we were going through, as I was saying about coming out of the wilderness myself, because I was really not prepared for such an in-depth project, because when I looked at all my projects, I illustrate what I've been told to illustrate, and then I get to share in the excitement of my authors who see their works coming to life through my illustrations. So when Terry and I began with this wonderful animals care for Mother Earth idea, we had a certain deadline, but the project had a much more important element because of the transition of their publishing company. And this transition, if any of you have ever been through this type of changing over, handing over of your company, when you sell your company and give over all of that, all of your, what do you call that? It's your brainchild, it's your baby, it's such a personal, deep part of your life, and to let it go to another company, another entity, it's a deep-rooted experience, because you're uprooting what you love and even some things that you really don't want to let go of. You have to let them go into the journey that the next company or the proprietors of that company, the new owners would be taking on through this journey. So this is a really important aspect of a teaching aspect that we both acknowledged after we went through this challenging time. So I had 6 stories about 6 different animals that I had to write about. And these animals were going to be dealing with, together, they were going to be dealing with a pollution problem. Now, the pollution problem took place in what is called the Pine Forest Pond. And all these animal characters and the pond and the location tie into previous books that I've illustrated for Strong Nations. And so the animal characters also tie into our finger puppet characters that I designed to also be as an interactive tool through this type of teaching experience. Because the book is so multifaceted in ways of teaching, not just as a resource for personal development for the children, but it also becomes a personal development for the teachers. And when I say teachers, I'm not speaking just of school teachers, a broad scale of all teachers, parents, grandparents. You have it all the way through there. It's really quite versatile and very powerful in ways that I can only share what I went through writing it with Terry. Terry did the in-depth research and did all the writings about the Indigenous plants and all the teaching elements that go in all directions for the teachers, for the children. So very exciting in looking at how complex it is, but also in ways where every teacher can individualize their way of sharing the teaching process. We have suggestions that go through the book, throughout the book, that suggest what can be shared or taught through experiences in class, and for the children to go and also pursue other avenues as far as their teaching or learning. So getting back to the experience that Terry and I went through, Well, Terry was letting go and going through a little bit of depression about letting go of her company. But we both agreed that it was important that we took on a teaching experience for the new team at Strong Nations. So we worked with a number of people there that were part of the publishing and part of the management of this type of project, which is very, very complex in the background, and certainly not an easy transition to take on. So we felt that animals' care for Mother Earth was going to be the ultimate transitional teaching tool, because of the fact that it actually takes all of our guided reading books. It takes all the elements that even Robert spoke of as far as our Indigenous teachings, plants, teaching about nature and the plants that are Indigenous to my area in northern British Columbia, and some of the plants also span down into our areas here in the south and the west coast. And so we also added language components, which come from my Tsimshian language from northern BC. And so we use that for teaching, again, just an exposure for the children and the adults to be able to see other words that connect to those Indigenous plants from my culture and where I was born. So with this book idea, we spent a lot of time discussing it and looking at how we could best teach the process, because we were so used to just being able to sit down, and we were such a well-oiled team that we could really produce a lot of product, great quality product in very short periods of time. And because it was all financed and a personal investment in the beginning, we had nothing slowing us down as far as the materials that we were producing. But it all went through all the different editing processes right into the government school editing categories. So again, looking at how Terry and I were dealing with this project, her as an editor, after she received, I got to be truthful about, I got to the deadline. I actually wrote all 6 of the stories for the book on the evening before the deadline. And a lot of you know about working under pressure and just that last minute inspiration. So I had all these ideas about the different animal characters that we had selected, and looking at how they all had their own different characteristics. They had their own connectivity to nature, and then looking at how they connect into my own Tsimshian culture as far as our storytelling, because the animals are the key characters of our storytelling in our Tsimshian Nation and pretty much all Indigenous tribes around the world. So with that respect to our creator and our respect to Mother Earth, and then the respect to the animals and how important their vibrational connection is to our daily living, this is what we wanted to bring to life through this book. And so when Terry and I were working on finishing up the first phase of the stories, she read the stories, all 6 of them, and then sent me an acknowledgement message back saying that she loved the stories, great job. And that was what I was hoping was going to be the end of it. So I'm all done. I can move on and go back to my forest living and get back off grid in my mindset. But unfortunately, I received another email the next day saying, well, okay, here's what you have to do to add more, to rewrite, to look at more in-depth connectivity for these characters, and the challenge of dealing with the pollution issue in their living environment. So I had to really go through some tough times. I did a lot of drumming. I'm a very avid drummer, and I connect with my ancestors a lot through my drumming. So I did have to get refocused through my drumming to get a little more in depth with the stories, because what we were wanting to do in the teaching of these stories was to maintain the character differences and those challenges that the different animals go through with those character differences. Because as far as the animals were concerned, we were trying to, I guess you can say, we're wanting the children to learn through the eyes of the animals. And that, I think, is really what we see in our storytelling. And the way that I've been taught by my elders is that it's really important that when we do our ceremonies, when we sing our songs and do our drumming, that we are seeing through the eyes of the animals and connecting that vision vibrationally to our ancestors. So that's why drumming is so important to us. Drumming and singing and the dances are so important, because this is the way that we can tell those stories and connect through the children's lives. And it's a big part of what I do in the schools as well, as I teach about the drumming and the vibrations that help children to be focused and drawn into that vibrational connection that we want to have. It's a unifying experience is what the drums enable in the classrooms and all environments. So that on a dry mouth situation, excuse me, please. And I want to thank you all for joining me and joining us on this beautiful teaching journey, because it's the first Zoom call I've ever done. And of course, we went through the muting situation, all those other challenges to get this started. But anyways, I just want to acknowledge that I'm very grateful for you all to come to listen and be a part of this journey with me, and looking at how important this whole education program has been for me. And one thing I do acknowledge in a humorous sort of way is that I used to joke around with my writers and saying, well, now that I understand the stories, how important these stories are in guided reading, it's even helped me to be a gooder reader. Anyways, that's my little humorous note on what I joke about in this wonderful journey. So back to where it started with Terry and I. We came to the agreement that we really needed to sit down and come up with a way that the children could connect through the animals. So we took all the plants, and there's of course 6 different plants that we chose. And what we've done with those plants is we have used them. I'm going to start a little bit earlier in the book. I mean, there's so much in the teaching content. So we have, as far as what we've included in the book, is we have a lot of different categories that teach about the animals and the challenges that they go through, but also their connectivity to each other through this environment that they live in. So when I was speaking about how this environment, where it took place, we also found that it was important to teach about maps and location. So we did a map. I designed this map, and it shows where the animals live and their location. Oh, I'm going to zoom over. Let's keep moving. I think you get the idea. So this is a really important component that teaches the children about using a map. And so each one of the animal characters, it's got the same listing that you would find in a map down the side. And each animal has the indigenous plant located near them on the map. So I hope you're seeing this okay. So that's their location. And this gives the teachers an opportunity to teach, whether you're teaching in the wilderness. I think it's a great way for the children to be introduced to reading maps. I never realized the importance of reading maps, even though that was a big part of my life as a fisherman. We used a lot of coastal maps and radar systems, and we truly depended on those paper maps to get us to where we needed to go and understand where we were and the depths of the ocean. And so that tool in itself opens up teaching for outdoor education as well, as you're all quite aware of. And so that, in a very basic but fun way with the animal characters, gives the children an idea where the animals live and where the pond was located that was polluted. So going from that map and each character, I took each character, and for each character illustrated a page that was reflecting the problem. So here you can see that the oil tank has spilled out into the lake, into the pond. And the animals, as difficult as it was for a little frog to connect with these two predator type birds, in the stories we don't have that type of real teaching of the dangers of their survival, but we just took this, again, seeing through the eyes of the animals and how challenging it would be for a timid but wise frog to approach two predator type birds who are difficult to connect with. So again, through that, the children learn the differences in character of each person through the animals. So this way, the frog was able to have some teamwork, and they came up with an idea of how they could get this pollution problem dealt with, and that was to get the oil can out of the pond. So again, looking at our reference material, these are the indigenous plants. We have this in all the areas, and as far as the way that they're listed, there's full explanation of each one. And again, I'm not having a good time with this, but also we have the indigenous words for them. And this is what we find is really important to connect into this type of teaching tool, is that the indigenous languages and an introduction to them also makes a connectivity to wherever the children are located, where the school might be located, and whatever First Nations community would be in that area. So we encourage through the book as well that they connect with that Aboriginal community, and maybe ask the elders about certain things that are important to them and their environment. And yeah, it opens up a lot of exploration. And I think that most of you, if you're in the outdoor learning business, so to speak, your careers are definitely grounded in respecting Mother Earth and respecting the communities and the environment where you're located and where you're going to journey to. So we have, when we were talking about trying to connect people to the environment, we looked at ways that each animal could, through my stories that I wrote, that these animals would have a way of going through and sharing how they dealt with the problems, how they used the plants to help clean up the ponds. And even through my own education, as far as the learning journey, I learned that all these plants have many more purposes than just looking pretty in the pond or in the forest. So each one of the plants that we put in there for each animal to use, they use them in a way where it's important to them first, and then it connects to the other animals, to teaching them a way of helping them with their health, to improve their own health through how they've been affected in the pond from the water. And so it adds all those detailed components into how we as humans also can deal with these problems. So all these plants are important for the animals, but also so important to us because we all originated from this earth and share this earth. So it's a really wonderful way to have that directed in those areas for the children. So now going into again, back to the transition of where First Nations and Strong Nations are. So our company, my work with Strong Nations through this book has been a wonderful journey. It took us 1.5 years to complete the book. It was a long journey, but everything that was put together and refined through this journey has been so important for the teachers and the children. And we've just been getting so many wonderful responses back from everybody using this as far as their daily teachings now to start this new school year. And I'm not sure how my time is going here, but are we ready to open up to questions? Or
I think that's a really good place. Do you know what we do have, Bill? Is several people have said, could you read us an excerpt? It's just a short piece, just to, a few people have been excited for that.
All right.
I want to give it all away, of course, but
I would, well, no, it's really important that, again, I thank you for that request, because I do love to to read, it reminds me of the journey, and it also reminds me that I got to practice my reading a lot more, which I've had to really polish up lately because of so many requests to read in the schools. I'll start with the first chapter. It's always the best way to go with the story because it focuses on the beginning of the story. And so what we're going to talk about is the first character is frog, and kana is our Tsimshian word for frog. So I will refer to frog as kana through the readings. So Gana represents responsibility by asking for help in a difficult situation. Beginning of the story. It was a beautiful summer day, and Gana, frog, was doing what he loved best, diving, swimming, and splashing about in Pine Forest Pond. When he swam close to the campground on one side of the pond, he tasted something very strange in the water that he'd never tasted before. Yuck! What could that be? He wondered. Gana hopped up on a lily pad to try and find the problem. That's when he noticed that the water was an odd color too. Looking around, Gana saw that the duth-oop, which is our Tsimshian word for cattail, stalks growing at the edge of the pond were turning an unusual shade of brown. Paying even closer attention, he could see a large can had been dumped at the edge of the pond, and a brown liquid was leaking out. Who could have put this here? And what is that horrible liquid that is polluting our wonderful pond? Gana wondered. He knew that something needed to be done, and Gana decided to get some help. Askik, which is the eagle, and Gach, which is raven, are smart. Maybe they can help, thought Gana. Askik and Gach were always around the pond somewhere, but usually Gana was afraid to talk to them because they had big beaks and sharp talons. Knowing that it was important to solve the problem, Gana resolved to put his worries aside and ask for help. He hopped off the lily pad and swam across the pond. It didn't take long to find Laskik and Gach, and Gana told them about the pollution in the pond. Together, they went back to the campgrounds to investigate the situation. Gana, Gach, and Laskik could see that a lot of the liquid from the can had already emptied into the pond. The can needed to be removed to stop the pollution from spreading further. The three animals started sharing ideas. After a good discussion, they suggested that Laskik and Gach grab the handle and lift the can out of the pond. Because Laskik and Gach had strong talons and wings, they had no trouble carrying the can away. Then Gana made an announcement, asking for volunteers to help them clean up the pond. Lots of duth-oop, which is the cattail, plants were growing around the pond, and Gana knew that the duth-oop could be used as a cleaning tool. Many friends showed up to volunteer. All the animals worked hard, and with teamwork, Pine Forest Pond was soon nurtured back to good health. So that is the first story that I read, the beginning of it. Of course, you can see the duth-oop, which is the cattail.
Beautiful. And that comes then with a lesson or ideas or sort of deeper
deeper
learning activities.
At the bottom of the page, it shows pronunciation of the Tsimshian words. So you have a lot of reference material to the words as well as the learn about categories. It's very, very versatile. And
that's beautiful. And somebody had...
But also to finalize what we added in as a visual bonus at the end. At the end, you'll see after Frog, Gana's brother says to him, Gana, I am so proud that you acted responsibly. So through the process of reading and sharing the story, we have all these different references to, after reading, what did Gana learn about himself in the story, talking together categories. And so you can see those categories that you have reference to. So there's nothing left out of the teaching of the topics and the all the different ingredients that are in the book. But really, what we wanted to do with the two characters at the end was to show that this acknowledgement, the importance of acknowledgement, is something that is really important for children. It's been a big part of our traditional culture as well, looking at how we acknowledge our ancestors and through our creator and also Mother Earth, and looking at the importance of just vocalizing that and showing that type of respect and being able to voice it. And just like you did, and thank you for your smudging presentation, I respect that and accept that as a blessing through my ancestors as well. So all these things, again, that we try to teach in this book tie into what we feel that children really need to be learning more about, and to be able to take this into outdoor learning experiences. It's a wonderful tool in many different directions. So, and I know you're all going to enjoy it when you do get the book. It's been a wonderful learning experience for me, but also a teaching experience.
Thank you, Bill. It looks wonderful. Tying into that sort of aspect of the lessons that they share and the gratitude, for some non-Indigenous educators, myself being one of them, particularly, coming to Canada and learning about that as an immigrant myself, a modern immigrant, I know that a lot of educators feel nervous about utilizing Indigenous language, about speaking through the sort of Indigenous perspective or an Indigenous lens of, animals having spirit and having sharing that connection. Would you have any advice for those teachers who are nervous or uncomfortable about that?
Yes, and that's a great question. And so important, because we have, I think since the 2010 Olympics, we started to see things in Canada and the world open up in the realms of respecting First Nations culture and ancestral teachings. So really what I hear a lot of, because I when I do my drum teaching and storytelling in the schools, is that a lot of the teachers don't know how to, and you're right, they don't feel comfortable about it because it's been brought out as a sacred type of sharing. But the most important thing that we acknowledge through how we're sharing this type of connectivity and sharing of teachings is that we're just happy that people are really interested and wanting to respect and learn how to respect our cultures and the cultures of the world. And why shouldn't we have been doing that for all the time? Why shouldn't we have that as a regular teaching in our lives? So I think that the main thing about it is first understanding and doing your research, because doing your research and asking local Aboriginal elders, if we can talk to everybody else in our teaching environments and our world, why can't we go to our local elders, to ask them questions? What's the best way that I can respect your ancestors and respect you? And it goes back both ways, because no matter where I am and who's my host and where I'm at, I still want to know who they are, where they came from, and even their ancestors are so important to me as well. So I think overall, it's just that genuine desire to ask a question without feeling intimidated, because there's no reason why we should ever feel intimidated to ask a question. And I think that's one thing that with the children as well is that it's so important. And sometimes my granddaughter takes full advantage of every question she can think of, which can be overwhelming, but I never turn away the questions. And if I haven't got an answer for it, I just try to be humble and say, well, Pop, we'll do some research, or I'll ask Siri.
And isn't that such a part of being an educator? I think is this shift into not having to be this, I'm up on a pedestal, I have all the answers. I found that if I don't have the answer to a question, particularly with a student asking me, how does that work? Or what animal or what plant is this? Having that vulnerability to say, I don't know, let's find out together. And I
Yeah.
feel like when I look at your story and your resource, there's space for that. There's space for that inquiry together. Like, let's learn this together. And that's why I see this as a professional development resource, not only for, you know, educators to share with their students, but for them in themselves.
Yes.
Okay, what I'm going to do is, we're 5 to the hour, and I'm very cognizant of those who don't use Zoom a lot, or those who do, having space to go and eat dinner and do their things. So here's what I'm going to ask to do. Firstly, what I'm going to do is going to say a huge thank you to you, Bill, for sharing your story and being vulnerable with us, and how this came into being, and to Robert for introducing us. And then I'm going to do our little prize giving, and then there's just a few more questions that have come in that perhaps we can answer just after the hour. And so if people do have to go, they can go, and we can honor that hour-long process. But if you want to stick around, please do that.
One more thing too, I'd just like to give a plug to Strong Nations and their website, which is just fantastic for all the other learning resources that they offer, and just a real go to strongnations.com, and that's where you'll find all this wonderful material and other teaching resources.
Absolutely, we could not be prouder to partner with you. So moving on to the prizes in just a moment, but I just want to share about the next workshops and events coming up in the series. Next Tuesday, October 4th, we have Nature Connection, sensory activities for all age, with author and nature sommelier Jacob Rodenberg. From October 17th to 21st, we have Take Me Outside Week and Day. You can go to takemeoutside.ca, and they have just this amazing free opportunities to connect into outdoor learning with your class over that entire week, with lots of special guests. If you are anywhere near and want to travel, you can travel near or far at the moment. We are hosting a Classrooms to Communities Educator Conference in Revelstoke, BC, with me and 40 professionals. We have Indigenous learning perspectives, we have water, all the way connecting up to the land and the mountains. So it's a professional development conference. That's October 21st, 22nd in Revelstoke, BC. There's a link in the chat coming soon for registration. Then November 15th, we have a small break, and then we have November 15th, Teaching Green in the elementary years. Then we close this series on November 29th with Karen Lai, who's an accessibility and inclusion consultant, talking about accessibility in outdoor learning. And so on to the prizes. So we have 4 prizes, and here's what we have. We have 2 $25 gift cards to the Outdoor Learning Store. That would get you a copy of The Animals They Care for Mother Earth book. And then I have 2 $25 gift cards to the Take Me Outside store, where you have beautiful, ethically made, Canadian made t-shirts, toques, books, and the such like. And actually, I've got I'm doing this slightly differently, but I am able to share with you a very quick presentation. Give me one moment and I'll have it up for you, and we're going to answer the questions here. So, and Steph, so I need everyone who's paying attention, anyone who wants to win, to have your typing fingers at the ready. Or actually, I don't want you to look at the question yet. No peeking. No peeking, no cheating. That was my fault. I'm sorry. Look, people are typing. La, 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 la. Reset, reset. Okay, so welcome to the quiz. The questions aren't up yet. So I would like for you to have your fingers typing at the ready. I'm going to show you a question, and then the first correct answer gets it. Steph has the answers in our script, so she knows what's going on, and you're going to pick the first winner from the correct answers. So some of you are ready, clearly, but the quiz starts now. Which animal, whilst feeding, helps enrich soil and forest cover vegetation, adding nitrogen required for healthy plant growth?
All right, so someone, it looks like the first person to get it right, which was bear, not worm, as many were guessing or wondering, is Adeline Uchida Hicks. So the chat gets pretty crazy during prize time, but if you want to private message me or email, that would be great.
Congratulations, you've won a $25 gift card to the Outdoor Learning Center. And this is one of the beautiful puppets that come as part of the Animals That Care for Mother Earth bundle. I've actually even got my own one. It's in my basket. I use them for teaching all the time. It's fantastic. Okay, are you ready? Question 2. Here it comes. Which animal is integral for maintaining water health, reduces incidence of insect-borne diseases, and features in around 10% of all Nobel Prize-winning research in physiology and medicine?
Catherine Myers just so Jade's not joking when she says get your typing fingers ready. People are warming up, I think, behind the scenes.
They're practicing. I promise nobody's had a sneak peek apart from the first question, but there it is. Do we have the correct answer?
Yeah, so Catherine Myers was in there right away.
And the answer is?
Oh, sorry, yeah, frog.
Yes, another one of the fantastic finger puppets that come in the kit. It's actually a frog. 10% of all physiology and medicine. Gana. Oh, you should give me the Tsimshian name so I can say them properly. Okay, and this is interesting. This is science vibe. It's this two-eyed seeing, right? It's the indigenous and the Western perspectives coming together, whereas effectively all indigenous traditional ecological knowledge is science, but just coming at you with a slightly different vibe. Okay, question 3. So congratulations, you won a $25 gift card to the Outdoor Learning Store. I don't know how to make this work. Bing. Okay, take me outside gift cards. Questions coming up. Fingers at the ready. Which animals help to ensure the success of human crop production through biological control and helping the environment by removing diseased animals from the population?
Took a few there. So another Steph. Steph Iksarisu. I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong there. But Steph, you were first in, so message me your email, please.
And the correct answer?
Eagle is the answer.
Or in Tsimshian, Bill?
Laskik.
Laskik. Love it. Congratulations. The translation there was really, really off. Zoom needs to up its game. Okay, last question, last $25 gift card to take me outside. Here we go. Which animal contributes to ecosystem health by sharing the carcasses of their kill to redistribute nutrients and provide food for other wildlife species like grizzly bears and scavengers? Who's got an idea?
I think that was Leslie Mackenzie who was first in there with wolf.
Bill?
Lachibu.
Lachibu. I like that. Lucky woo. Okay, congratulations. Those are all 4 of our prizes that we are giving away. And so I will switch back to this and say thank you so much for everyone who's participated with us. Thank you again, Bill, for your excellent sharing with us, and for Robert for your time and energy of sharing as well. We're going to ask a couple more questions. So thank you. If you do have to go, Lim Limt, Husukini in the Slaha means I'm grateful. We're very grateful for you being here. Merci bien. Muchas gracias. Anyone joining us from different language speaking parts. Okay, a couple more questions for you. I'm going to have to scroll back up. Okay, Diana asked, Bill, do you have any links for the people here to connect into drumming, your drumming, or to drumming resources that they can utilize?
Another great question. They can go to my website, billhelin.com. I do have some references to my drumming programs because I'm certified to do the K10 teaching program in the schools, which is based upon drum vibration and storytelling. And so that is also listed on the site, so they can, I don't know what it is like, and there's a lot of drum programs now that are in the areas, but nothing really similar to what we do. And my program is really diversified because I've been working in the education system for so many years. And what I'm developing is a program that teaches teachers how to use drums in the classroom to work with the children, as far as we call it drum vibration management, because our vibrations are so what we are all about, our environment, our bodies, everything is about, electromagnetic vibrations. So I teach about that, a little bit about that on my website. And then I do drumming programs locally and bookings through the schools, drum circles, also do some fun drum dance presentations, which kind of like a drum dance fitness class type thing. But we just acknowledge and dance with our ancestors, and that's probably the best way to go. And I can offer some other links to areas, like if people want to know who I'm connected to across Canada, then I can also refer them to other people. But that's probably the best place to go is my website, billhelin.com.
Fantastic. So we do have a North American wide audience, and someone like Linda, who's said she's really finding it hard to find storytelling and drumming in Colorado. She wants to connect with Indigenous teachers. Do you have any ideas? Generally, I understand that it really is very localized, but do you have any ideas for people and how they can connect? And if you don't, I have a couple in connecting to like your local NAAE affiliate, your North American Association for Environmental Education, because they are hopefully looking to build those relationships. That might be a place. But do you have any, tips or, for people that want to reach out and just don't know how to start?
Sure. I think because this is starting to grow quite fast, the challenge for most of the Aboriginal teachers and drummers has been just how do we introduce this without putting a negative vibration in the direction of our ancestral teachings, because most of the songs are very, very important, very sacred. Some of the newer songs, like I've written quite a few different ones now that tie more into modern times here, and that reach out in that acknowledgement and respect of our ancestors, as well as everybody else's ancestral connections. So some of the areas, like I say, it's starting to grow a little bit more, and in other people taking interest from other Aboriginal communities. So again, if people want to reach out and connect with me, I can do my best to connect them with people I know through the States. I used to do a lot of shows and down in the States with all the different First Nations groups around, all the way out through Colorado and Santa Fe, and so yeah, I can do that. And there is a lot online now but not enough people specializing in it. It's very difficult to take it on the way that I have, because of the fact that a lot of it is about entertainment, in a sense that we're storytelling and we're wanting to have fun with it. But the key ingredient of it all is the vibrations of it, and the respect of the song and the stories speak for themselves, because there's so many health benefits that come from drum and any type of drum type vibrations.
So Bill, someone has asked, and I mean, you're a complete newbie to Zoom, as you expressed. This is your first ever, which is, I mean, fantastic for you. Lucky.
Get in my teeth.
Yeah. So could you run a workshop? People are asking for a virtual drum workshop with you. Could you do that? Could you send those vibrations virtually? Is that something that might be an offering in the future?
Yes, definitely. I've done that, not with Zoom, but I did that the only way I can do it with the iPhone. We did a couple classes that way through COVID, but yes, I've been preparing to do that, and I'm well prepared to do it now, especially now that I'm a Zoomer.
Well, reach out to Bill, billhelin.com. The link's in the chat there, and then there's those options. And I mean, if we think about the fact that energy is just moving, it moves, it passes between all through all kinds of mediums. So, I don't see a problem with it being behind the screen. I feel the energy of the story that you were telling as you told it today. So
somebody was asking, the link isn't working, but yes, billhelin.com is my website. I don't know why it wouldn't be working, but there's people asking. Yeah, somebody just put a reference. Thank you on there. I noticed them pop.
Okay, we have 6 more minutes. I'm going to sneak in a couple more questions. Okay, this is an interesting one from Kim. He's a long-term environmental educator. And this, I think, is really kind of a situation between, or where we've seen diversions between Western education and Indigenous. And I feel like I see a lot of ways that we can come past this. But throughout the ages, anthropomorphizing animals has been criticized by white academics. And, you know, for me, I studied geology, for example, and the technical definition of that is the study of non-living things, which is absolute nonsense, because, you know, rocks are the repository of memory of our earth. You know, they contain the life that has existed. They contain the change and the heat and the pressure and the stories of everything that has walked upon it and within it. And so what do you say to, why is it so important for me? This isn't even a question about why is it so important that we actually connect into animals as beings rather than just this sort of non-sentient creatures?
Well, again, another great broad question. But I think what we've seen in the world is that you know, the unfortunate unimportance of wildlife. Whereas I work a lot at the North Island Wildlife Center here on Vancouver Island, and so we have a wonderful interactive environment where I do some drums presentations in my 40-foot dugout canoe there. And I think the idea that, you know, that people aren't actually taking the time to get out with their children into the environment. And when you have entities telling you to stay in your home and stay confined, and, you know, and being in that locked up sense, I think we are getting so lost, and people are so lost in technology, and finding that becomes a replacement for the importance of what is out there in the wilderness. So, and we've seen so many times where we've had the local authorities go and shoot a mother bear and leave us with the 2 and 3 baby cubs that, you know, they're motherless now. We have to take them into a cement coated environment to take care of them and keep them dehumanized, so to speak, so that we can send them back out into the wilderness, back into their environment without the teachings of their mother. And so they, you know, I'm not even gonna say it, but anyways, those entities find it more important, easier when somebody calls them up and they're scared because there's a bear in the area. Heaven forbid, but their alarm systems are set up for scarier characters or creatures that can come in and cause much more damage, because very, very few people get killed by wild animals as opposed to other humans. And so looking at the way that I think, even through this book, again, a wonderful tool in the sense that we take the children and just the teachers get to look at things a little bit more through the eyes of the animals. And I think that's what it's really all about, is just to come back to the fact that the animals are part of our world. We're infringing upon their living space. We're infringing upon everything in the wilderness without understanding every aspect of it. And when you talk about vibrations, yes, we are vibrational creatures. Everything is, and that's why my ancestors have taught me so much about that vibrational existence, that our bodies are just here for a temporal journey. So no matter what's ahead of us and what happens in our environment, and as we would speak in our traditional stories, when the Thunderbird comes again, he shall replenish the earth with all power and all might. And that's where the stones speak of that story, the petroglyphs, the calcification of what we see around the world with wood buildings and wood structures and monuments. Most of those people don't realize that most of those stone structures are actually calcified wood that we think are stone sculptures, like the pyramids. Well, it's not wood in the pyramid, but that's just like building these things from our history and being able to understand the true history. Well, my people go back over 30,000 years, so that's a lot of history that we try to share and try to teach. That it's not just based upon the past 1,000 years of history that's been presented to us in most schools. It's yes, the people around us that have been here for thousands and thousands of years, they have lots to teach.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I feel like a lot of the resources that you've shared and that are also available from different authors, 5 Strong Nations, talk about those relationships. And when we actually give value, when we give names, when we give spirit, when we give this personality to the animals, which has been a part of you know, all of the Indigenous cultures, they're all different, but that I have had experience with, then we take ourselves to be equitable with them. We don't place ourselves up here and our needs overcoming everything. We don't destroy habitats and say, well, that's fine because they're not as important. I think reinstilling that deep connection and the value and the wonder and the importance of each and every living being and the non-living things that help support those ecosystems. These are the teachings I'm getting from your work, by the way. This is like my absorption and spitting it back out. When we can do that, when we can build that reciprocity, then we have learning for a sustainable future. We have the capacity to actually care, to have intergenerational stewardship again. So thank you for the work you're doing. It is incredibly important. I'm going to say it is 1:15. I am so grateful for everyone who joined us and for, hundreds of people who got to share in this moment of educational and personal development. Thank you so much, and we wish you good night.
Deutschen.
Nimm nimmt.